Hey guys, this is Jamie. So today I want to talk about, I guess, something I'm not particularly attracted to, being gay and all, but I do want to talk about, I guess, the fetishization and the idolization when it comes to straight cis women. So I've talked about this in the past, obviously. Um, I've criticized very often, and I do criticize in general, trans men's ideology and the ones which are attracted to women to sort of perceive cis and straight women as like this ultimate goal. So I do have to say that it already, even just saying that sentence in your head, you're probably thinking, cool, that's amazing biphobia. So the fact that trans men feel as if they're less manly for some reason, or if they'll be likely to get cheated on, or whatever other biphobic reason, which is very often sort of credited in a reason why straight trans men or trans men who are into women seek specifically for straight cis women to be in a relationship with. And in general, if you see, there's always like up to the point, I'm sure there's like thousands of threads online on will of straight trans men saying, is it possible to get a cis straight woman? And they see that as their ideal. I do understand that in the trans community, very often trans people may want to be with another trans partner to share experiences, or to be with a cis person, sort of not to clash in too many sort of problems when it comes to dysphoria. But that is still not a reason for someone not to date someone, and obviously unless it's like very severe and for some reason it clashes and it disrupts everything else. But the fact that for some reason straight cis women are considered the ideal, I feel, is very flawed. And I do understand that it also stems a lot from the fact that for some reason our society deems that cis straight women need to be protected a lot. And I do understand there's historical implications of, and specifically now, like in the age where, like in the US, like Roe versus Wade was, well, pretty much put back. We don't have, obviously, access to abortion in many countries. We don't have access to different reproduction rights. And obviously, there's preconceptions, there's religion, there's different factors. And I do understand the sort of the upbringing I had where women were very much seen as equal, and I grew up with very sort of successful woman relatives just as men. So, and again, like I grew up with my parents, which grew up with the Soviet Union, which my grandparents, which were in the Soviet Union. So obviously, I have a different perspective, and I have a sort of different view on gender on due to the fact that I grew up in Eastern Europe. And right now, this is all very recent that, like in Russia, you have people advocating to have abortion, to have children very young. This wasn't a thing when I was growing up. This wasn't a thing as much before. And like even when my parents were growing up, on the opposite, it was sort of considered that you're gonna have kids while you're in the university, or you can have kids later. But there was never sort of a even demands or idea of sort of making sure that the woman stays at home. Or like, for instance, my grandfather on my mom's side, he was a house husband nearly completely to my mother. So the fact that I had like a grandparent as a nearly a house husband, because he still did a few hours of work, just that my grand was the full sort of breadwinner. And one grandparent was a university professor, while my grandmother was a very sort of non-doctor at the time. But anyway, um, so yeah, it's very sort of bizarre to see these things, and my family was sort of not exactly well off. My grandparents like died in poverty. I grew up in poverty as well, but the issue of gender was never a thing that I sort of thought about. So every time I do these videos, I really want to give the context of where I'm coming from. So it's not obviously something as jarring, and I can sort of go with my bias, but that still gives no way to sort of go with the ideology that we've been having for the past few decades, specifically like in feminist and left circles, where a woman's voice is above everyone else's. And I'm not trying to sound this as some sort of heavy men's rights activist or anything, but I do feel like we need to address this ideology, because very often we obviously still have like I had a woman which were very heavy abusers in my life, and again, this is also personal, I understand that, but this whole idea that, for instance, if you're looking for a partner, it has to be a cis straight woman seems just very bizarre. Like, because instantly people are discarding trans woman, and this is like trans men, for instance, discarding. Then we have the issue of cis men feeling as if they're also less of a man for going for a trans woman. And it's all because of this ideology of the cis straight woman. And in general, like with gay men, like obviously for the years have idolized different divas with their struggles. And it is something that I also don't really relate to as much, because sure, I enjoy divas, I enjoy pop music, but I feel like we need to relate more to people with similar struggles as well. And that also brings me into a very important portion that I want to talk about today, which is why this whole thing started. I tend to sort of like follow celebs out of my niche of interest, etc. And obviously, there has been also, like, in general, we've seen a lot of discussion through the years, and specifically as I've joined the LGBT community, there's also massive idealization from lesbians as well for straight women, and cis straight women specifically. And this is where I find that a bit icky, because obviously there's a very intense dynamic between gay men and straight men. There's like this massive desire that gay men aren't as manly and etc. Well, when it comes to lesbians who lust after straight women, again, I won't understand like what's the appeal and etc. But I'm poly and I'm open, so obviously I'm 100% sure that I've slept with more guys who probably consider themselves straight, but how to put this, everyone who I've slept with are on Grindr. And I don't exactly have a very feminine face, or feminine, how to put this, attractions to me. So, but still, I just don't understand this whole idea of, obviously, if we go back to the feminist movements, there was a thing sort of like as political lesbians. So straight women who would still sort of be with women, whether sexually or just through convenience, through political reasoning. But why is there such a massive desire for them? And I do understand they sort of think like of solidarity, sort of, and that's sort of feminist key, sort of, to compassionate and save women and to make them understand stuff, and specifically their rights. And it's good when you're raising awareness, like women should have like the right to vote, women should have absolutely right over their body. But when it comes to pure idealization or having events or saying that, oh, I like straight girls or whatever, when you're someone who is not a straight man or a man who's interested in women, I find it very weird when lesbians or people tend to have this attraction. And obviously there's been a lot of sort of jokes or whatever of like more masculine or in general sort of lesbians which are not sort of straight passing to going for a straight woman, or like saying like sleep with a lesbian, she'll eat you out better or whatever. And you have those jokes in the gay community when it comes to straight men, but I don't really see as much of an advertisement for that, and that kind of worries me. And I do understand, again, I'm not a lesbian, I'm not in lesbian circles, and obviously being a gay trans man, like there's no correlation really between that, but it's still something I see in the community and it bothers me. What I really don't understand is like, obviously, in general, I feel like we don't say how harmful very often straight women are to the community, because straight women are can be tradwives, they can be conservative, and obviously a straight person is more likely to not understand someone LGBT than the other way around, I think. Again, very murky senses, I know, but still. So we're defending this part of people which, for instance, can be TERFs. So we have people like, for instance, Robin Morgan, who I unfortunately learned of recently while reading an article. And she's a massive TERF, a massive feminist, who in one of big feminist events, she was a big second wave feminist and very anti-pornography, for instance, but at the same time she raised awareness such as against child beauty pageants in general, racism, but she was very, very anti-trans woman. And she even got an organizer to step down from an event because, or rather supported the fact that an organizer of an event of lesbians, feminists, should not have trans women, and she has been very outspoken about it in general. Now, this is what I don't understand. Like, I am just like everyone else. I cannot emphasize on how many more struggles a trans woman will have compared to a cis straight woman. So I do find it very disgusting, factually, of specifically feminists, or in general any TERFs, which or anyone who is transphobic, to sort of go and say that trans women do not have issues or do not belong in a woman's space. I don't want to say that. No, actually, I will say it. From my experience as a trans man, I feel so welcome in gay spaces. While when it comes to trans women, I don't see the same love for trans women as I see for trans men. And it comes to like in the sort of uh, same-sex circles. And then I also wanted to emphasize on the fact that this is specifically hypocritical. For instance, if we look at very sort of problematic feminist parts, we can look at Mitchfest, for instance, which originally had a very massive policy of do not assume anyone's gender. And this was because a lot of the people there, some of them were non-binary, some of them were just there just from the assumption that women were born woman, basically, or just the fact that if someone felt like Leslie fucking Feinberg was there, who didn't identify as a woman, would not be questioned or kicked out, but they would kick out trans women. So why the fuck someone trans like Leslie Feinberg would be welcome, but a trans woman, a binary trans woman, would not be welcome? And this is the issue I have with very sort of double standard feminism, and specifically trans exclusionary feminists. So yeah, I have a whole video on Leslie Feinberg, I'm sure you can find it. And I really dislike Leslie with my entire being. And I recently learned that they were also a big pioneer of the word transgender, and I personally use the word transsexual towards myself, and I prefer it much more, and now I know why I don't like the term transgender. But anyway, so, and a lot of these pioneers, like if you look at Valerie Solanas, who is also a massive turfy lesbian, also had gender issues. So you see at all these pioneers, which are TERFs or in general have gender issues, like fuck, even J.K. Rowling writes under male pen names. So all these women have issues with trans women, or have transphobic pasts, or advocate for this ideal straight woman they want to bang or idealize. But they all happen to have gender issues, and they're still gunning for this defense of the straight woman, which makes no sense. But also some claim to be lesbians. There's the he/him lesbians. And in general, what I want to say is I am so confused by all of this. And then if you go into a bigger rabbit hole, we have the he/him lesbians. We have the lesbians which are against the fact that so much butch lesbians are transitioning to men because men are bad, and we need to some people need to stay as women, trans men are traitors. And it's like, and all of this is coming from people who are very confused about their gender very often. What I'm trying to say is all of this confusion is coming from defending someone who can possibly be a trad wife, instead of defending your own community or someone who can do just as much harm. Like, the wife of the same conservative Republican can mean just as much harm as the man you're against. Some people don't want to open their eyes and see the injustice. Some people enjoy being in this injustice. Some women enjoy being in this situation. Or some women just get the equality they want, and then they spin whatever they want for the rest. So at the end of the day, it becomes a fetish for an existing thing which might hate you, you're not compatible with, and there's a fetishization of. And yes, again, gay men have it as well, their ideology, but I don't see gay men standing up that much for straight men in a way that women do. And I feel like if we're gonna hold someone accountable, we need to hold everyone who should be held accountable, factually. I'm so sorry. My throat's completely dry by now for talking for 20 minutes. So yeah, what I want to say is I have so many issues with so many people, and I understand that it can be my own biases, the experiences I've had. But at the end of the day, I just wish people would hold women to the same standard they hold men, and that is fucking equality in this case. Thank you very much for watching. My throat is completely gone. If you enjoyed this video, please share, please discuss it with your circle. That's always what I encourage. If you liked it, if you enjoy my videos, please feel free to subscribe. If you have a comment, please feel free to leave it below. I've had someone ask if I should do a video about myself, to sort of talk more about myself, since I haven't done that in a while, and I haven't done a QA. I did one like God knows how many years ago. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them below. And yeah, feel free to give it a like, sort of, yeah. Thank you very much again, and I hope you enjoyed this very long video.